The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the UN Security Council chamber. Director of Intelligence Marcus Wong stood at the podium, his normally pristine suit wrinkled from 48 hours without sleep. The holographic display behind him pulsed with strange signals patterns that definitely weren't from Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, Wong's voice cracked slightly. At 0300 hours UTC, our deep space arrays detected these transmissions. They're approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri, and they're approaching fast. Commander Jack Reynolds slouched in his chair at the back of the room, boots propped irreverently on the seat in front of him. His salt and pepper hair and weathered face spoke of decades in special operations, but it was his reputation for thinking way outside the box that had earned him a seat at this table. While the other military brass sat ramrod straight in their pressed uniforms, he looked like he'd just rolled out of a hammock. The messages repeat in perfect mathematical sequence as Wong continued. This is first contact, people, and they're not being subtle about it. How long until they reach Earth? The Chinese representative's question hung heavy in the air. At current velocity, Wong checked his tablet. 14 hours. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until a deafening boom silenced everyone. Reynolds had slammed his boots down onto the floor. Hate to interrupt the panic party, he drawled, spinning a pen between his fingers, but they're already here. The massive view screen behind Wong flickered to life with a live feed from Times Square. A ship that could only be described as a floating mountain of metal had materialized above the city, its shadow plunging Manhattan into premature night. As they watched, every screen in Times Square synchronized to display a single message. People of Earth, we are the Varaxian Empire. Your primitive species has 24 standard hours to submit to our authority or face immediate extinction. Resistance is futile. Well, Reynolds muttered, they definitely didn't come to trade recipes. The room descended into chaos. Military commanders barked orders into phones, diplomats argued about response strategies, and someone in the back started praying quietly in Arabic. Our orbital defenses, the U.S. Secretary of Defense demanded. Like bringing a water pistol to a nuclear war, Reynolds answered, still twirling that pen. They crossed interstellar space. You really think our pop guns are going to impress them? Then what do you suggest? Commander Wong asked, desperation evident in his voice. Because right now we're looking at either surrender or extinction. Reynolds finally sat up straight, a slow grin spreading across his face. It was the kind of grin that had preceded some of the most unconventional military victories in recent history. You ever work in government administration, Director Wong? Unfortunately, yes. Why? Then you know humanity's greatest weapon isn't our guns, our bombs, or even our determination. Reynolds stood, walking to the front of the room. It's our ability to turn anything, even galactic conquest, into an endless bureaucratic nightmare. He grabbed a marker and started writing on the whiteboard Operation Death by paperwork. Commander, the Russian representative spoke slowly. Are you suggesting we bore the aliens to death? Better. Reynolds turned, his eyes gleaming with mischievous intelligence. I'm suggesting we make them fill out the forms in triplicate. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Then, amazingly, Director Wong started laughing. You're insane, he said, shaking his head. But given our options, he looked at the alien ship looming on the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe Commander Reynolds just volunteered to head our first contact bureaucratic response team. Out in Times Square, the Varaxian ship hung motionless, its crew probably expecting Earth to spend these hours in terror. They had no idea that humanity was about to unleash its most fearsome weapon, administrative procedure. Commander Reynolds stood before the hastily assembled first contact bureaucratic response team, a motley crew of Earth's most formidable administrative warriors, tax auditors, DMV supervisors, and insurance claims specialists. Ladies and gentlemen, he addressed the room, today we weaponize paperwork. The Varaxian response to Earth's initial 47-page acknowledgement of receipt form came exactly as Reynolds predicted. Their holographic transmission showed High Commander Zixtar, his scaled face twitching with barely contained rage. What is the meaning of this? Document the alien leader spat the last word like a curse. Reynolds smiled pleasantly. Standard procedure, High Commander. Before we can properly process your extinction threat, we need you to fill out Form X-157B intent to conquer and/or destroy subsection planetary scale threats. In triplicate, of course. Triplicate. 1 copy for our records, 1 for yours, and 1 for the intergalactic filing system you surely maintain. Reynolds paused. You do maintain proper conquest documentation, don't you? Behind the scenes, military bases worldwide hummed with quiet activity. While Reynolds kept the aliens occupied with bureaucratic warfare, humanity's defenses were being fortified. In underground bunkers, scientists worked frantically to reverse engineer captured Varaxian tech from their scout ships. The next week brought a parade of increasingly absurd requirements. The Department of Planetary Defense demanded environmental impact studies for each proposed method of extinction. The Global Bureaucratic Council insisted on proper permits for parking capital ships in Earth's orbit. Your invasion force lacks the proper certifications for multi-species combat operations, Reynolds informed an apoplectic Zex-Tar. We'll need to schedule an inspection. First available slot is in 3 months. 3 months? We demanded your surrender. Yes, well, there's quite a backlog. Though we might be able to expedite the process. Reynolds shuffled some papers. If you'll just fill out these fast-track application forms, all 312 of them. The Varaxians established a diplomatic office in Geneva, thinking to streamline the process. Instead, they found themselves trapped in an endless loop of interdepartmental referrals. Every morning, lines of frustrated alien bureaucrats stretched around the block, each clutching stacks of incomprehensible human paperwork. One junior Varaxian diplomat was found sobbing in a bathroom after spending 6 hours trying to obtain a simple Earth-threatening species permit, only to be told they'd been using last year's forms. Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, General Martinez watched satellite footage of the alien fleet. They've moved 3 destroyers out of formation, he reported to Reynolds. Looks like they're heading home. Couldn't handle the paperwork, Reynolds smirked. According to intercepted communications, they had a nervous breakdown trying to comply with our new galactic invasion OSHA requirements. The crowning achievement came when Reynolds introduced the concept of public hearings. The Varaxians were forced to sit through endless town hall meetings where humans droned on about property values, environmental concerns, and whether planetary annihilation would affect local parking regulations. High Commander Reynolds addressed the alien leader, who now sported visible stress marks on his scales. I'm afraid we've received 47,000 public comments that must be addressed before we can proceed with processing your conquest request. But that could take years. Oh, certainly. And each response might generate additional comments, requiring further review cycles. Reynolds beamed. Shall I have my team prepare the preliminary response forms? Zixtar's hologram flickered as the alien commander slumped in his chair, defeat evident in his posture. For the first time in Varaxian history, a warrior race was being conquered not by weapons, but by humanity's most refined form of psychological warfare, bureaucratic procedure. Lieutenant James Martinez watched the Varaxian ambassador's eye twitch as he slid another stack of papers across the desk. Just our standard terms and conditions for planetary invasion. Only 2,457 pages. Though you'll want to pay special attention to subsection 47.b regarding the proper disposal of conquest-related waste materials. The ambassador's translator device emitted a high-pitched whine of distress. Behind the scenes of this bureaucratic theater, Earth's military installations buzzed with activity. In Nevada's underground labs, scientists had turned the aliens' endless paperwork requirements into an advantage. Every document request meant another scan of their technology, another chance to analyze their communications. Request denied, Martinez declared, reviewing the ambassador's latest submission. You used blue ink instead of black on Form XJ789. You'll need to restart the entire application process. The alien diplomats slumped forward, their ceremonial armor clanking against the desk. But that's the 18th time. 19th, actually. I've been keeping track. Martinez pulled out a fresh stack. While you're here, we need to discuss your fleet's parking permits. They expired 17 minutes ago. In orbit, humanity's defensive grid grew stronger by the day. Each bureaucratic delay bought more time for Earth's engineers to adapt Varaxian technology. Every frustrated alien ship that departed in disgust reduced the invasion fleet's strength. The final straw came with Earth's 500-page response to the Varaxians' latest ultimatum. It began with a 50-page analysis of the grammatical implications of the word surrender. Across 147 Earth languages, followed by a comprehensive review of historical surrender protocols dating back to the Bronze Age. Section 394 clearly states, Martinez droned on in the 7th hour of his presentation, that any extinction-level event must comply with local noise ordinances. Now, about those environmental impact studies. The ambassador's translator finally gave up and exploded in a shower of sparks. In the Pentagon's war room, General Chen reviewed the latest intelligence. Their fleet's combat readiness has dropped 60% from pure frustration. 3 more ships requested transfers back to their home world today, citing acute administrative stress disorder. Martinez smiled, straightening his perfectly pressed uniform. Time to submit our request for an extension on their apocalypse deadline. I've prepared a mere 700 pages of supporting documentation. Above, the Varaxian fleet prowled Earth's orbit, their mighty weapons silent not because of mercy, but because they still hadn't received proper clearance from the Department of Planetary Demolition. The Varaxian High Commander's rage-filled scream echoed through every communication channel on Earth. 3 months of bureaucratic torture had finally broken them. No more forms. No more permits. No more procedures. The alien leader's voice cracked. Burn everything. Commander Elena Chen smiled in the Pentagon's command center. Right on schedule, she pressed a button, activating Earth's hidden defense grid. All units, execute Operation Papercut. The space battle erupted like a violent dance. Varaxian warships charged forward, only to discover their weapon systems locked by Earth's newly developed countermeasures reverse-engineered from all those mandatory technical specification submissions. You wanted proper documentation. Elena's voice rang across the battlefield. How about a receipt for this? Earth's orbital platforms unleashed salvos of missiles, each painted to look like rolled-up scrolls of paper. The Varaxians, their combat reflexes dulled by months of administrative hell, responded sluggishly. In New York, Lieutenant Rodriguez led the ground defense, armed with humanity's deadliest psychological weapon, portable printers that launched endless streams of forms into the alien dropship's intake vents, clogging their engines with bureaucratic confetti. Status report, Elena commanded. Their main battleship is trapped in a holding pattern, her tactical officer reported. They're still waiting for clearance from air traffic control. The battle for London turned when British forces deployed their secret weapon, an army of polite but extremely inefficient queue managers. Alien ground troops found themselves inexplicably lined up for hours, uncertain why, but unable to break the social protocol. Tokyo's defense centered around a massive holographic display of unfinished paperwork, causing entire squadrons of Varaxian fighters to turn back in psychological terror. Elena orchestrated the counterattack with surgical precision. Each Earth defense system had been calibrated to exploit the aliens' newfound bureaucratic trauma. Warships retreated at the sight of "please take a number" signs. Combat robots froze when presented with outdated license forms. A junior officer called out. They're attempting to regroup above the Pacific. Perfect. Elena activated the global command channel. Deploy the customer service hold music. The sound of gentle elevator music filled space. Interspersed with "your extinction is important to us. Please hold for the next available apocalypse." In orbit, the mighty Varaxian armada began to crack. Ships collided as commanders fought over who had properly filed their attack vectors. Others simply fled, their crews suffering from acute PTSD, post-traumatic standardization disorder. The ground war devolved into surreal scenes of alien warriors being defeated by clipboard-wielding humans. In Paris, a single determined DMV employee held off an entire invasion force by repeatedly asking them to provide proof of residence. Their breaking Elena's tactical display showed the alien fleet in disarray. All units, execute final phase the audit. Earth's combined forces pressed their advantage. defensive satellites launched clouds of paper clips, forming impenetrable administrative barriers. Ground-based lasers painted bureaucratic form numbers onto enemy hulls, causing their crews to instinctively stop and attempt to file them. The Varaxian High Commander made one last desperate transmission: "We are warriors. We will not be defeated by." Section 7, Paragraph 3. Elena finished for him, which clearly states that unauthorized attempts at planetary annihilation must be submitted in triplicate with proper notarization. The alien leader's breakdown was broadcast across all frequencies. 3 months of human bureaucracy had accomplished what no weapon could. It had broken their spirit. As the remaining Varaxian ships fled Earth's orbit, Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Send them a satisfaction survey." "Mark it urgent." The last Varaxian ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only mountains of incomplete paperwork drifting in Earth's orbit. In the UN Security Council chamber, thunderous applause erupted as Commander Elena Chen delivered her victory report. "The enemy retreated not from our weapons, but from our ability to turn their conquest into an administrative nightmare," she announced. "They've transmitted their formal surrender, though we sent it back for corrections due to improper formatting." UN Secretary General Williams stepped forward, holding a thick document. "Commander Chen, in recognition of your innovative defense of Earth, you're promoted to Admiral. Just sign these forms." He paused, smirking. "In triplicate, of course." News spread through the galaxy faster than light. Humanity, the species that weaponized bureaucracy, became legendary. Other warrior races gave Earth a wide berth, fearful of facing the dreaded administrative combat specialists. 3 months later, the Galactic Council made an unprecedented decision. Earth was unanimously appointed as the processing center for all interstellar permits, licenses, and registrations. Admiral Chen stood at her office window, watching lines of alien ships stretching beyond the moon, each waiting to renew their space travel permits. "How long is today's wait time?" she asked her assistant. "Current estimate 3 solar cycles," he replied. "We've had to implement a new numbering system." Chen smiled as a Varaxian diplomatic vessel took its place at the back of the line. "Have them fill out the new extended wait time acknowledgement form." "Already done, Admiral. Though they'll need to resubmit it." He paused. "They used blue ink instead of black." Humanity had found its place in the cosmos, not as conquerors or warriors, but as something far more terrifying: the galaxy's Department of Motor Vehicles.